Welcome to this explainer. Okay, today we are embarking on a truly massive journey. Seriously, we're going to zoom all the way out to look at the very nature of human knowledge itself, and then we're going to zoom all the way in to examine the fundamental fabric of reality. We're breaking down some incredibly dense, boundary-pushing source material today that completely challenges the status quo of modern science. So let's dive right into this, because this is exactly the kind of provocative question we're tackling today. Think about it. What if the universe didn't actually start from some magical singularity? What if solid matter as we know it is just an emergent property of folding boundaries in absolute nothingness? We are going to challenge the foundational dogmas of cosmology, of physics, and honestly, even how we acquire knowledge in the first place. Here's our roadmap for this explainer. First, the betrayal of knowledge. Then we'll hit the small bang theory, the limits of the cosmos, the NK theory of everything, and we'll wrap it all up with the eternal search. All right, section 1, the betrayal of knowledge, the illusion of consensus. Our source material argues that our relentless search for knowledge, truth, and wisdom, which it refers to as WWW, is currently paralyzed. It proposes that modern academia has essentially replaced the ruthless pursuit of truth with a culture of systemic safety. The texts highlight a really stark contrast here. On one side, you have what's called cognitive inertia. This is that modern academic tendency to hide behind safe phrases like, well, it's complex, or more data is needed. And this creates what the source calls pink noise. You can think of pink noise kind of like elevator music for your brain, right? It's just designed to keep you comfortable, not to actually make you think. But on the other side, we have epistemic discipline. Now, this requires friction. It means demanding sharp, falsifiable statements, actively seeking out contradictions, and completely abandoning the safety of the consensus. To combat all that cognitive inertia, the source champions this absolutely crucial maxim: strong opinions loosely held. You've got to rigorously and sharply fix your ideas. Write them down, give them hard edges, make them attackable. But the very moment a better argument comes along or a black swan event shatters your thesis, you have to drop it immediately. Truth is an active practice. It is not a static state. And get this, here is a fascinating statistic from the analysis. Only about 10% of people, what the text actually calls the cognitive vanguard, actively seek out this necessary friction. They use incomplete or even harsh information as a catalyst to build realistic mental models. The other 90%? Well, they simply settle for systemic nudging and comfortable illusions. Moving right along to section 2, the small bang theory, Earth's violent rebirth. So, leaving human epistemology behind for a second, let's move to and see how this builds into the actual mechanics of our planet. The small bang theory, or SBT, posits that a staggering 3% of Earth's total mass was violently ejected into space to form our moon. This wasn't some slow, gentle accretion over billions of years, and it wasn't a random asteroid collision. It was a massive, internal planetary event. And this wasn't just a simple cannon shot either. It was a highly complex, multifactorial expansion. Imagine a 30-kilometer thick granite crust rupturing right in the Pacific. You've got 7,000 bar of subcrustal pressure violently expanding into the absolute zero-bar vacuum of space. And crucially, you have to remember the early Earth was spinning much, much faster. We're talking a 6-hour day. That gave the material at the equator this massive kinetic head start of nearly 2 kilometers per second. It literally acted like a planetary rocket engine. The consequences of this were totally planetary in scale. This massive recoil shifted Earth's axis by an astonishing 22 degrees. That's what gives us our distinct seasons and the Earth's famous Chandler wobble. Furthermore, because the material was ejected from deep under the crust, straight from the Earth's mantle, it perfectly explains why our moon is made almost entirely of silicate mantle material and completely lacks a massive iron core. It just clicks into place. All right, section 3, limits of the cosmos, the geodynamics of space. Okay, so we've seen how a planet can violently birth a moon, but let's scale this up. If planets can have moons, why on Earth don't moons have their own moons? Why isn't the universe just an infinite set of Russian nesting dolls? Well, to understand this, we need to look at two really critical physical boundaries. First is the Hill sphere. This is basically the gravitational safe zone where a body can actually hold on to a satellite. The second is the Roche limit. This is the danger zone. If you get too close, the tidal forces of the larger body will literally shred the satellite into pieces. And this brilliantly illustrates a hard vertical limit to cosmic emergence. For a moon to have a submoon, that tiny submoon has to squeeze perfectly between the Hill sphere and the Roche limit. But because of constant tidal friction from the primary planet, submoons inevitably lose their momentum. The hierarchy simply cannot go on forever. Our cosmic Russian nesting doll either gets flung way out into the void, or it gets violently shredded into cosmic confetti at the Roche limit.
Now, this concept of limited emergence ties directly into some massive modern astronomical anomalies. You've probably heard that the James Webb Space Telescope has spotted fully formed, massive galaxies existing just 280 million years after the supposed Big Bang. According to our standard singularity models, these just shouldn't exist yet. The source texts argue this actually points toward an ever-emergent, open universe of self-structuring solar systems, which completely does away with the need for a magical Big Bang singularity in the first place.
Which brings us to Section 4, Theory of Everything, NKE. Nothing, crust, something.
So ever since the 1930s, physics has basically tried to smash matter into smaller and smaller pieces. But the NK theory argues that this is actually a dead end. Instead, it offers 3 steps. First, we have nichts, or nothing. Now, this isn't just empty space. It's absolute mathematical symmetry with 0 information. Second is crusta, or crust. And finally, etwas, or something. To really grasp this, think about blowing a soap bubble. You have the empty air, that's nichts. You have the incredibly thin film of soap that creates a boundary, that's crusta. And because of that boundary, you suddenly have an inside and an outside, a structure, that's etwas. Matter isn't a solid block at all. It's a relational geometry.
So the crucial point here is this central axiom. Structure touches structure in nothingness. Because nothing is just a perfectly uniform background, it essentially cancels out of the equation entirely. There is no empty space acting at a distance. There are no spooky invisible particles carrying forces. There is only the immediate, relational friction of topological boundaries interacting directly with one another. We are literally structure inside nothingness.
To make this model work, the source distinguishes very clearly between prephysics and metaphysics. Prephysics is the natural, emergent formation of properties. It's how space, time, and boundaries naturally arise from the dynamics of the system itself. Metaphysics, which this theory strongly rejects, is the false assumption that some sort of supernatural force from outside the system intervenes. In NKE, everything is natural. It's relational, and it is entirely emergent from within.
And finally, Section 5, the eternal search, the asymptote of truth. Let's bring this all the way back home to us, to human understanding, and our actual place in this deeply structured, boundary-driven universe. See, if the universe were closed, it would just be a deterministic clockwork. It would be a repetitive loop where absolutely everything is perfectly predictable, which means no free will, no true evolution. But NKE describes an open universe. It is a system of eternal emergence. As new structures fold and interact, they generate entirely new irreducible rules that could never be predicted by looking at the levels below them. And this perfectly aligns with Gödel's incompleteness theorem that mathematically proves that no sufficiently complex system can ever prove its own consistency from the inside. Therefore, absolute truth isn't some static finish line we can just cross one day. It expands dynamically alongside the emergent universe itself. Our human knowledge, our relentless WWW, can only ever approach absolute truth asymptotically, meaning we get closer and closer and closer on the curve, but we never actually touch the finish line, simply because the universe keeps generating new complexities. The goalposts keep moving.
Which leaves us with this final, truly thrilling thought. We are not living in some predictable, dying clockwork machine. We are the active, emergent structure of the universe itself, endlessly pushing against the boundaries of nothingness. So, if absolute truth expands forever, always just slightly out of our reach, what emergent structure will human knowledge form next? Keep seeking the friction, keep challenging the consensus, and thank you so much for joining me on this explainer.